What are the best ways to track business expenses? Should you hire someone to do your bookkeeping for you? How does bookkeeping differ between LLCs and corporations? I'm Jamie.
I'm Mark.
And we're Social Sudo. So, Mark, we're just getting started as a business and don't really have an income stream yet. How important is it to track our expenses right off the bat?
Yeah, it really is quite important to begin tracking your expenses as a company. And the reason why is because you're going to start having small expenses. You're going to pay for a domain, you're going to pay for a host. Shortly after you start tracking expenses, you're going to meet with a lawyer and you need to start paying some expenses to set up your company. All of those expenses are going against an income statement, which generally startups don't really have yet. They don't have any revenue or income. They're just accruing expenses. So that first year of business is usually financially pretty tough. And you're generally living off of income or money that you already possess. So when it comes to filing your taxes at the end of the year, what will happen is all of those expenses that you accrue in your business is going to show up on a K-1 report, and that can then be used as a deduction against any income that you had during that year as an individual. So it's really, really important just to make sure that you're not overpaying at the end of the year and to sort of bring back the amount of income that you generated so that you will end up being charged less at the end of the year.
So what software should we use to track our expenses?
Yes. So there's a couple of options here. Depending on whether or not you do have a bit of revenue already or a bit of money where you want to pay for something that works really well, or if you just want to get the ball rolling with something simple. I have two options which I can recommend, and there are of course several other options if you just consult Google. But the two most places for beginners to start happens to be an Excel spreadsheet or QuickBooks. Now QuickBooks is a bit more expensive, and Excel is obviously free, but you have to start from scratch. But I'm not going to leave it there. I'm going to give you some information that might be able to help you. For a long, long time as an individual, I had been tracking my own receipts as an individual from a template that's provided by an individual that has vertex42.com. And on here, there's a money management template that I find is really, really useful and really good at tracking expenses. It's really quite intuitive. But everything in this is quite manual. But I think that that's fine, because if you don't want to spend a whole lot of money and you only have, let's say, less than 30 transactions in that year, then Excel is more than adequate. When you're ready to move on, I do recommend QuickBooks. QuickBooks is going to allow you a better money tracking platform. It's going to break down all of your categories. It's going to generate profit and loss statements, balance sheet statements, these really important documents that your accountant will need in order to really understand what your tax liabilities are.
And just out of curiosity, which did you use when you started Macroscopic Solutions?
Yeah, so of course I wanted to do this on a budget. I wanted to do it as cheap as possible, but already using Vertex 42, I understood what my limitations were there. So I was ready to level up and just go right to QuickBooks. And when looking, there were three different versions. There's a PC version, a Mac version, which are quite the same, but they're desktop models. And then there's a web version. And the web version does unlock a lot of functionality in terms of sort of AI reading your bank statements, so you don't have to record every transaction. But ultimately, what I ended up going with is a desktop version, which I upgrade every 2 years, which is generally a flat rate between $250 and $400 per year. And the reason is just because it ends up costing a little bit more if you went with the online version. And I really just had no use for that type of functionality at that time.
Should we consider hiring somebody to do it for us at all?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. I would say absolutely not. This brings us back to the core of why you want to start a business. Of course, you have a solution to a problem and you want to get your product out there to the masses. But at the end of the day, that's what business is about. It's about generating revenue. It's about generating income so that you grow financially within the context of your business. And I think that understanding the way that your business generates cash flow is really important in overall just the management decisions that you're making. Should you spend X amount of dollars on this conference? The answer is either yes or no if you understand what your cash flow is like. So I think that in your first couple of years, staying really in tune with what your expenses and your income is like, just tracking your overall revenue, is really going to go a long way in the success of your business.
So we decided to form an LLC. What are the accounting or bookkeeping implications of that decision?
Yeah, so this is an important question. Right after this phase, you're probably going to go meet with a lawyer and you're going to try and figure out whether or not you want to set up your company as an LLC or a corporation. Now, if you're a big multi-member company and you have this grand idea that's going to take a lot of investment capital to get off the ground, you're probably going to want to go corporation. And that's the smart thing to do from an accounting implication, because then you are isolating all of your business expenses from your personal expenses. However, if you're a small member LLC and you really want to maintain ownership of your company for a long time, you run it more like a boutique business, then an LLC would allow you to basically, there's a lot of crossover there, in other words. So basically, if I were to buy something as an individual, I can really easily reimburse myself or just pay it off using a company credit card and vice versa. And there's really no consequences as long as you record it and you basically show your accountant this is what that expense was used for. So there's a lot of flexibility if you're an LLC in accounting where you can make and buy things. Your partners can buy company things with personal credit cards and back and forth without having to go through some really hard and stringent reimbursement process. So generally, for example, the reason why I think that that's good sometimes is there might be a personal credit card that you have and the rewards on it are like 5%. But the credit card you have for your business is 1%. So you want the 5% cash back. So you buy a couple of cost of goods sold, so there's some items you need to resell for your business on your personal credit card. You get a 5% discount in the process. And then from your business, you can just pay off that credit card. And in a C Corp, you can't do things like that. You can't use a personal credit card and just pay it off from the business. There's a lengthy legal reimbursement process. And generally the reason for that is because you do have lots of partners. You can't just have individuals buying things with company money and not being able to track it. So that's really the main difference as it relates to accounting between an LLC and a corporation in my mind. And it's just important for you to consider when selecting how you want to structure your company.
Great. So today we talked about how important it is to track your expenses right off the bat, regardless of if you paid them from your personal credit card or accounts or a business account. We talked about what software we should use, Excel or QuickBooks, and what the differences are between those. The fact that you should be accounting for those things yourself, and why we chose to go with an LLC as opposed to a corporation.